Shit.
She would have been real interested in doing it.
The 10th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.
Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news. Once again, from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha, here is your host, Andrea McMaster.
Every time she hears about a family searching for a missing loved one, her heart breaks once more. Kelly Jolkowski is the mother of Jason. Her son disappeared more than 5 years ago. Since then, she has not only been trying to get the word out about her son who is missing, but also for other Nebraska families who are missing a friend or a loved one. And one of her big efforts has been to start a new website that the Nebraska State Patrol is helping with as well, to get the word out about those that are missing in Nebraska. It's called the Missing Nebraska Clearinghouse website, and today we have two guests that are going to be talking to us about this. Thank you for joining us for this week's Consider This. We have two guests with us today, Kelly Jolkowski, the brave mother of Jason, who's really, you've helped so many families, I know, of families who have had missing loved ones, whether they found their loved one or whether they're in your situation where they're still searching and still hoping. And it was when your son was 19, more than 5 years ago, that your son disappeared. And we're going to have you share your story in a moment. But also we have Lieutenant John Shelton with us today with the Nebraska State Patrol and the Criminal Identification Unit. And I was glad that you could be here today to really help us understand what goes into an investigation when there is a missing loved one as well.
Absolutely.
So Kelly, I know that this is even hard to talk about. It's been June 2001. Since Jason's been missing, but every day that goes by, you probably still are wondering, where is he? What's going on? Whatever happened to him? I know there's not a day that goes by that you don't think of him.
Absolutely.
So can you take me back to June 2001? He was 19 at the time, right?
Right.
And what happened when you first discovered that Jason wasn't coming home?
It was just an ordinary day. It was June 13th, and just like any other Wednesday, my husband and I went to work. He worked an earlier shift than I did, and Jason worked part-time later in the day. His car was in the shop, so my husband was going to take him to work when he got home. And I was still at work, and I started to get phone calls later in the day because my husband had come home and Jason wasn't there. And our younger son, who was 13 at the time, he was there and said that Jason's place of employment called him to come into work early. He told him, my car's in the shop, I don't have a ride. They offered to come and get him and meet him at Benson High School, which is 7 blocks from our house. Quiet residential neighborhood. And so he proceeded to walk there. The last place that he was seen was in our driveway. He was seen by Michael, our younger son, and by a neighbor. And no one has seen him since. No word. They did check the cameras at Benson, and they did not see any sight of him. So the employer, of course, was calling, asking if we'd heard, and my husband called and asked if I had heard. I thought that was really strange because he's such a responsible young man that he wouldn't say, I will come and work, and then just not show up or go somewhere else. So as the night progressed, it became more frightening. It's like something just isn't quite right. And so we drove in our car and went to some places that he might go. He liked to walk. He liked to go to basketball courts and shoot basketballs. So we drove to some of those places, and he wasn't there. He just wasn't anywhere. So what began as an ordinary day became a very not so ordinary life with a missing person. When you have no idea what has happened, you have no clues, no leads. We don't know if he's alive. We don't know if someone took him and hurt him. That's really the hard part, is not knowing.
Well, I think I've heard you say before, you wonder, is he safe Did something horrible happen to him? Just not having any closure in a way makes it even more difficult. I know that there's been a number of families who have had a missing loved one, maybe for a couple of months or maybe just for a couple of days, but if they have some closure, even if it's very difficult closure, finding that that loved one died in some way or was killed or it was a homicide. But for you, not knowing might be even more difficult, is it? Just kind of share with me some of that.
Well, when you're in this situation, you're in the process of grief, but the problem is for a case like ours is you don't know where you are in that process. You can't really move forward, you can't move backward, and you don't know what you're grieving for. Am I grieving because he's dead? Am I grieving because he went away willingly and, hurt his family? And why would he do that? There's so many unanswered questions, and you're just stuck emotionally. So it's very hard. And it's a seasonal thing too. When the seasons change, it's like more time going by, another birthday, another anniversary, and still no answers. And I remember at the beginning when I started to research missing people and found out the astronomical numbers, and I would see these cases that they'd been missing a year, 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. I think that won't be us.
And now you are here more than 5 years later.
Right, so now it is us.
And through this time, you've been able to move away from some of the personal hurt to want to help others as well. And so why have you really wanted to get behind this? I know one of the reasons is because the number of people missing out there to you was just startling. More than 300 in Nebraska.
It was and continues to be. The sheer numbers, and we're talking numbers nationwide too. It didn't take very long. It was actually only a few months, and after the few months was the point in time in which law enforcement had went through any initial leads and questioning friends and neighbors and coworkers and that sort of thing, and we were left with nothing. There was nothing else to go by, and that was kind of a hard transition time because we felt like we were then stuck. And just through the research on the internet, learning about the missing person, what I call the cause, we just felt like we were called by God to help other people, to take what we learned, because there were so many things at the beginning. We didn't know we could have done things that possibly could have altered where we are now. Maybe we wouldn't be at this over 5 years, but there's no handbook. So if someone you love becomes missing, you're not handed the book of instructions on how to deal with it, and time is so critical. So if you miss some of those open windows of time at the beginning on doing certain things, you may have put yourself in a cold case position, such as what we are. And so I said, I never want to see that happen to anybody if I can possibly help it. So we started out little by little, and eventually, of course, it evolved into pursuing the law, Jason's Law, and then it ended up being our organization because we didn't get the law passed right away, and I didn't want to wait. I said, I'm not going to wait 3 to 5 years, which is what we were told was the average amount of time to pass a law. I said, we can't do that for these people. We need to take action, and so that's when Project Jason was born.
Well, tell us a little bit about Project Jason. It's projectjason.org,
yes,
the website, where you can go on and get so much information, so much useful information. But tell us a little bit about the mission of Project Jason.
The key things that we work with would be awareness, because that's really the primary vehicle to resolve cases. I believe the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children says that about 60% of children are found because someone saw their face somewhere on a poster, anywhere where you can disseminate the information. And so we have to really work hard to get those faces and the stories out there. So we help the families, not just in Nebraska, but nationwide, with different awareness programs that we have. A second thing that we do is we work to educate the public, because the typical person has no idea of the scope of the program or the scope of the problem, the magnitude, the sheer numbers. And we also try to get everyone to realize that they need to have an identification kit themselves, no matter how old they are, in case they should become missing. That goes back to the critical time in the beginning when you need to disseminate that information and find that person. The third thing that we work on would be support for the families, because it's one thing to have a person to talk to who's sympathetic, but it's really something totally different in this case to have someone who really truly understands what you're going through. They understand the surreal world that you're thrust into. They understand the fears and the anxieties that we deal with when we don't know what's happened, when we have to live with this ambiguous loss. So that's the third thing that's so important to those families out there, to have someone to, in a sense, hold their hand, guide them through the process, let them know that the things that they are feeling are normal, because they're not sure. Because just like the next person, we all say, we never thought something like this could happen to us. It's just something you see on TV, you're detached from it, and most people think it just happens once in a while, and it's not going to happen to me.
It's very easy to put yourself in that place. Well, I want to get to really what the heart of this program is. Several of the things that you talked about, we're going to get back to in the personal identification kit, what's involved with that, some of the critical time issues and your suggestions in that. But I want to get Lieutenant Shelton and to have a chance here to talk some too. But let's talk a little bit about why you wanted to help start and some of your efforts in taking this to the Nebraska legislature, the Missing Persons Clearinghouse, which really is a website devoted to the missing to help Nebraskans find their friends and their family members who are missing. So tell me a little bit about this website and how you see the vision. Here we have up on the screen the portion of the website where Jason is posted on the website, where you can see pictures of him and you can see all of his information and description information. So share with me what you see as how this can be used as a tool, how we as the public can utilize this, and really what your vision for it is.
Well, it's a wonderful awareness tool, and there really aren't that many states, unfortunately, who have a searchable website like what we have now. I'm so proud of that, and especially one that doesn't just have missing children, but missing adults as well. So I highly encourage anyone in the public to go to the site, and there's a searchable section where you could actually put in the law enforcement agency where you live. So for example, in Omaha, you could put in the Omaha Police and look at all the missing persons reported by the Omaha Police for who's in your area. You could also put in Douglas County Sheriff's Office too, for example, so that you're aware that these people are missing, because they could be someone who's moved in next door, but because you don't know they're missing, then you can't help. You have to be aware of who is missing to help. So that's the way that the public can help. They can also, of course, go to the individual person's page and print up a poster, which is the example that we have with Jason there, and they could put those up in their neighborhoods, businesses, because everything like that helps.
I was going to say, does it help if here at the University of Nebraska Omaha campus, if one of these posters of Jason was up and it was up for a couple of months, do you think that makes a difference? I mean, your hope is it's making a difference. It's a piece of paper in a lot of people's minds, but is it getting the information out there?
To me, it's more than a piece of paper. It represents hope. And when I go somewhere and I see a poster of Jason, I don't know who put it up or how it got there, but that really makes me feel good. It lets me know that people care. So even if that piece of paper did not result in him being found, it helps me carry on. And again, as I mentioned, seeing the person's face is in most cases what's going to bring them home. So we need the public's help to get the word out about these different people.
Okay. Lieutenant Shelton, I know it's been a while. We wanted to make sure that Kelly could share some of her
Kelly
story.
do all my speaking. She does a wonderful job.
I know, but no, truly, I do want to hear from you in the fact that I really did think it was startling, and maybe it's not, but to see 300 people, around 300 people listed on the Nebraska Missing Persons Clearinghouse website, to me that was startling. Is it?
It is. Yes, it is. I don't think the average person really knows that is the amount of people that are listed as missing in the state of Nebraska. As of September 13th of 2006, there were 343 people listed as missing in Nebraska.
Okay. With Kelly mentioning having these posters, people going to the website in the public and looking at some of these that might be missing in their area, does that help?
Well, the fact of the matter is, all it takes is just one person to see something that might lead to one part of an investigation that might solve a missing person case. And the more people that see those faces, the better chance the law enforcement has of finding those missing persons for the family.
What do you find are the most common reasons that people are missing in Nebraska?
Well, there's a number of reasons someone might be missing. However, in speaking about the 343 as of September 13th of 2006, the lion's share of those numbers are people that are voluntarily missing. Many of them juveniles that are reported to police as missing by guardians or parents because those juveniles have chosen to become missing for a short period of time.
So runaways periodically for right now.
You know, that word brings up an image
Okay.
that has some baggage with it over the history of runaways. However, law enforcement treats all missing persons the same, children, adults, no matter what their status might be. So consequently, if a person chooses to become missing, law enforcement takes a report, enters that person's name in the NCIC database, the National Crime Information Center database, which is law enforcement's way to share information across the country. And then in addition, they fill out the forms and enter that information into our missing persons clearinghouse. No matter what that person's status was when they became missing, whether voluntarily or involuntarily, law enforcement takes that information and we enter it. Thus, why we have such a large turnover of those that are missing and then cleared or recovered.
That's what I was going to say to you. I've noticed that a lot of missing cases resolve quickly.
They do, and most of those are because they were voluntarily missing.
Okay.
They might be juveniles or people that just chose to not be in contact with family and then turn up in a short period of time. But because they are considered missing, the law is very clear. Law enforcement's duties are very clear. We will take that information and we enter it into NCIC and the Missing Persons Clearinghouse.
Can you bring me through as much as you can share with an investigation of a missing person? You get a call from Kelly that her son hasn't been seen for X number of hours. What's the process that starts then?
Well, first of all, the interview needs to be done in a very timely manner to try to evaluate the exact situation with that person, their age, does it appear they're in any immediate danger, possible avenues that might help resolve the case quickly. As Kelly mentioned earlier, time is of the essence in trying to do something about solving this case quickly, and law enforcement recognizes that, and that effort on law enforcement has improved drastically over the years, with statistical data showing that the faster you can get on a case, the better chance you have of resolving it in a positive outcome.
Okay. One thing that I wanted to point out too about the website is going through there and looking, the majority of the people listed, and this was doing a search by female and male, I noticed were teenagers or below 20, and that might be because they voluntarily chose to go
It might
missing,
very well
as you're
be,
saying.
yes.
And a lot of them were put on there recently, but then there were some that have been missing 15, 20, 25 years. They're adults now.
Yes.
They left as an adult, and they had 3 kids behind. Those have to be the strange cases that you see.
Yes, in fact, those cases are the ones, obviously, that are the most perplexing. Interestingly enough, though, we just had a case that was from Nebraska that was a 30-year-old case out of South Sioux City, Nebraska, that just this summer was solved. And the 4-year-old girl that was missing, it was a family abduction, was located in Florida. And
Wow.
after a 30-year absence has been reunited with her mother.
I can't imagine that, really, as a mother. Yeah. Wow. So can you share a little bit about that?
Well, I wasn't involved specifically in the investigation. I do know that there was some information that came forward based upon a age-enhanced picture from a national website. And someone called, and one tip led to another, and before long, the investigating officers local officers were able to do some follow-up and actually sent officers to the area of Florida and was able to confirm that this was the person that had been missing.
So there's some evidence right there that those pictures do make a difference,
Yes,
That's
they
a
do.
great tool.
even 30 years later. with
And they
the-
do an excellent job with those too.
Wow. Okay, now I know the question that a lot of people will ask is about the Amber Alert. What is the criteria for that? Why aren't all missing people, an Amber Alert? Why is an Amber Alert put out for all missing people?
You want me to answer that? I know you know the answer.
And I'll interject as well.
Well, Amber Alert was developed through the Attorney General's office along with the news media and the ability to notify the public quickly in the event that a child is missing. That was the original thought. In looking at how they wanted to facilitate that operation, what was developed was some thresholds that need to be met so that the public wouldn't necessarily become inundated with missing persons on a regular basis. That was one of the concerns that the people developing this, the organization developing this program had, was that they didn't want to blitz the public every day. So they set up some thresholds. The first threshold being that the missing person needed to be 17 or younger. However, that can be adjusted as the situation might arise. But that is a general rule of thumb, 17 years or younger. But there has to be some indication that the child is in immediate danger of.
But you wouldn't always know that.
You might not always know that. Based upon the circumstances, you might not always know that. And there also has to be some way that the information you're gathering would facilitate a public response. In other words, you have some information that would allow the public
To be
help
searching for
search
something.
for you.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be a license plate, maybe it might be a car, something that would allow the public to help you search for this person.
So not just a picture of a child, in other words. You
That
want to have
alone,
another
without
tool.
other elements, would make it very difficult for the public to offer a lot of assistance. And so with those things in mind, those are the thresholds currently that are set up through the Amber Alert program.
Okay.
It's highly successful.
So
Saved so many lives.
you're thankful for it. the
Oh,
system.
absolutely.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about if someone getting down to some of the recommendations about a missing child or a missing adult. If I have a loved one that's missing, should I wait 24 hours to report that to the police? What should I do? What are some of the steps that I should take? Kelly, what did you learn that you want to share with people as well?
Well, we learned that the rule of the 24 hours is not really true. And I think a lot of people thought that, and we thought that too. So we waited until about 10 o'clock the next morning, which is about the time that he disappeared. And of course, obviously now, I wish that I had known that that wasn't true, that if we can communicate that this was just totally out of character for him and called the police that evening perhaps after we had done some preliminary searching, then we could have had the ball rolling much sooner and perhaps had a different resolution than what we have. So parents with young children, of course, should take just a really quick look around the house, and perhaps one parent could be looking in closets, under beds, that sort of thing. Somebody else, older sibling, could check at neighbors or friends real quick. But then someone should immediately be getting on the phone to the police and calling to take the missing persons report. And this is also where the ID kits come in, because if they have those ready, then it's going to be that much quicker to get the law enforcement on the streets looking, put out the BOLO alert, and the other various processes that take place.
Kelly, I think you have to share a little bit what a personal identification kit is. What does that involve? Fingerprints of the child? What else?
The kits that we have on the Project Jason site, they're very simple. A person can go to our site, print them out, and one for each person in the family. They fill out all the physical data. They attach a photo. But they also have a second component, and that would be an identification component. So if we do have the unfortunate situation of a body being found, we have the three components possibly needed for identification, which would be dental, fingerprints, and something for DNA. So you have the two aspects of it, and the first one, the primary one, of course, is that physical data needed to start the search. And believe me, when you're in that situation and they start talking about birthmarks and scars and weight and height, you're not going to be in a mental capacity to provide all the information. And then on top of it, if you're scrambling for a photo, a current photo, that's going to take that much more time. And so
And I noticed you said for every member of the family. So we're not talking the youngest members of your family or children under 5. We're talking, it can be parents, adults, your grandparents.
every single person. It doesn't matter if you're 6, 16, 36, 66. Don't think that it can't happen to you. And you know, especially in this day with the aging population, we are getting so many more cases with the older adults with dementia wandering off. And most of these families don't have the kits on those to have that information. And I just can't emphasize enough, have a current photo. It's not that hard. A lot of people have digital cameras. You can keep that photo updated, keep that physical information updated.
Okay. Well, before we wrap up, I really want to make sure we have all the graphical information out there so people can see what the website's address are that we've been talking about. And then one more question for Lieutenant Shelton here. But the Nebraska Missing Persons Clearinghouse is available online, and we've been talking about that website today. That's www.nsp.state.ne.us/missing persons /index, and also the toll-free number 877-411-LOST, and then also lots of information on projectjason.org. Well, Lieutenant Shelton, just a couple suggestions for parents if this happens where they have a child who is missing.
Well, and I would echo Kelly's comments. Notify law enforcement immediately. Take a mental note of the positively last time you saw the child. Having an idea of schedules is so important, so that everyone has an understanding what everyone is going to be during the day in schedules, so that you can assist law enforcement with knowing where that child should have been at about what time of the day. Those sorts of things are so important. And the only thing that I would add to Kelly's comments on the child identification kit is one of the things that law enforcement now has available to them is mitochondrial DNA testing, so that if you do have a loved one that is missing already and you don't have a DNA, we can take DNA now from family members and use that to help identify remains in the event that a child or an adult is found later. Or and you're not sure who they might be, because the fact is there are thousands of unidentified bodies right now.
Okay, well, of
across the
course we
country.
hope that never has to happen. But Lieutenant Shelton, thank you so much for being here, and Kelly Jokowski for sharing your story about Jason.
Consider
you.
This
And thank you
is an
for
Issues
joining
and
us for this
Information
edition of
program
Consider
produced
This.
by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at unotv.unomaha.edu. If you'd like to share your comments about this show, call UNO TV at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours.
The 10th season of Consider This is brought to you in part by From the Top, a national program showcasing the musical talents of young people. From the Top can be heard on KVNO Classical 90.7 each Saturday at 6 p.m.